Hey everybody, Jamie McLeod-Skinner here. I'm running to be Oregon's next Secretary of State. Now we've started a series of Facebook Live conversations on Monday, Wednesdays, and Fridays at noon, mostly talking about the aspects of the Secretary of State's role, aspects about how we can better protect our democracy, build more accountable government, and safeguard our natural resources. I mean, those are my three priorities for the Secretary of State's race. But today on Hot Topic Monday, we wanted to take a step back from that focus just on the office itself and really look at what's going on around us. I know we've been talking and incorporating the impacts of COVID-19 into a lot of our conversations, but one of the biggest challenges that we're hearing from folks is just this struggling to grapple with it and address it and deal with the changes it's requiring of us. And so we wanted to take today to do something a little bit different and to just focus on the aspect of coping with COVID-19, coping with the pandemic that we're in, and trying to give some ideas on helping folks get through it. So that's what we're going to focus on today. Just for the whole sake of these talks being about the Secretary of State, let me just put a few minutes into talking a little bit about my background and the role itself. And then we'll jump into the conversation, give you some tips on how to deal with some of the coping and getting us through this time, and some references to some great websites you can reference. So about myself, I'm a natural resource attorney, also background in engineering and planning. I'm an elected member of the Jefferson County Education Service District Board, and some of the great work that our educators are doing here in Jefferson County, but around the state, is really starting on that distance learning piece. That's also part of what we're doing right now in this response to the pandemic. I also was appointed by the governor to serve on OWEB, the Oregon Watershed Enhancement Board. My wife and I live in Central Oregon. We've got 4 kids, although most are out of the house, and we've got 2 dogs, and really enjoy the lifestyle in Central Oregon. I'm from Southern Oregon, Ashland High School graduate, and began my public service, though, after getting my degrees in engineering and planning over in Bosnia and Kosovo. And that actually ties into this conversation today. I worked for the International Rescue Committee, a humanitarian organization, managing the repairs of schools and hospitals in war-torn Bosnia. And while my job was focused on the sticks and bricks of repairing structures so that people could return home, some of my colleagues also worked on mental health related projects, because there is this recognition that people going through a time of trauma, whether it is man-made or whether it is a product of nature like we're facing now, there is loss of life, there is an impact on our daily lives, and there's also the grappling with dealing with it and addressing with the change that it's forcing us to incorporate. And actually some humanitarian organizations in emergency hotspots, like I worked on in Bosnia and Kosovo, will actually rotate their staff out every few months just to get that mental health break. When you're surrounded constantly by high levels of stress, it has an impact on you. Another just interesting source, and we'll be talking about this with the group in future live streams, is the ongoing stress that folks face, not just in pandemics, but even institutionalized racism has an ongoing health effect on people. There's a great series that I'm watching now. It's called Unnatural Causes, and it talks about the physical stresses and the medically proven physical impact of racism and constant ongoing stresses on our bodies and how it impacts our health. So those are some of the things that we're also seeing right now. And this pandemic is really bringing those things to light. But let's shift to some of the things and how we can cope with that. Oh, and before I get there, I just also want to say, just real briefly, that again, the Secretary of State office, a lot of people don't know what the Oregon Secretary of State does. And so I like to give like a little mini civics lesson, if you will. And essentially the Secretary of State is an executive management role that oversees over 200 employees and several different divisions, elections, the elections division, audit of state agencies, the state archives, and also business registration. Secretary of State is also one of three that sits on the state land board, so makes decisions along with the governor and state treasurer on how Oregon's state lands are managed in our public waterways. It also serves in two backup roles. One is lieutenant governor, so it steps in if necessary, if the governor is not able to fulfill her duties, and then also is a backstop to the legislature for redistricting. That is, every 10 years we redraw our political boundaries. That's the Secretary of State, who, if there's yet another walkout, the Secretary of State would take on that role. And so I'm really passionate about this because it's about helping to protect our democracy and build stronger and healthier communities, more accountable government, and healthier communities by safeguarding our environment. And that's why I'm really interested in this role. But that's why this role can also, it does tie in to some of the things going on right now that we're addressing through the pandemic, both looking at what we're going through now and then how we're going to look back on it and assess how well we did and what we can do differently next time. But the two things today are really about, one is the social distancing that we're hearing a lot about, and that term is used, but we're trying to get people to think more about physical distancing and social connection, because the social, when there is actual social distancing, that's what makes it really tough for a lot of folks to address and to deal with. And so we want to give a little information on that and essentially say, keep up the good work, those who are helping to, we're actually flattening the curve. And when you hear that term, it's because it's the graph that shows the spike of either deaths or incidents going up if there's a lot of contact and the disease is being spread, or the virus is being spread. So we're doing a pretty good job here in Oregon. We want to tell people to keep up that great work, and then also talk about some strategies to, again, help us to get through it. And so first, about flattening the curve. Of course, we have to start this conversation, and really any conversation about the current pandemic, with our tremendous gratitude to those who are helping to protect our physical health, those are providing us food, and those are providing those basic services that are necessary. So for those providing our healthcare, from doctors and nurses, those working in assisted living centers, janitors, keeping our systems and facilities clean, are all doing really important work on our physical health. Those providing us with food, from farm workers to truckers to grocery store clerks, all those making sure we have access when we do get out of our homes to get access to food. And then also those who are providing, caring for those who don't have a home to stay in, and those who are providing those resources. Just today, we're actually seeing a lot of schools that are reopening at a distance, and distance learning is starting up. I know educators have been working on preparing this for quite a while and getting these systems in place, but that's putting a tremendous demand on our educators, on the administrators as well, our IT staff, and even our bus drivers in many areas are still engaged when they're doing kind of a reverse bus driving route, dropping off food to kids who are hungry and families who are not able to provide food for them. I'm really proud. We're in Jefferson County, really proud of all the work that's happening here, but I know it's happening across the state. So kudos to those folks. So that's the work that's being done now. In terms of the other work in flattening the curve, the Oregon Health Authority has recently released new projections that estimate that here in Oregon, our physical distancing efforts are really helping to flatten the curve. Although the estimates say we've avoided about 18,000 new cases of COVID-19 and as many as 500 hospitalizations by folks responding to the stay-at-home request from the governor, the order that the governor put in place. Those of us who are not doing that other really critical work that I mentioned before, our job right now is to get out of the way. Our job is to make sure we're not being part of the problem. And so spending that extra time, physically distant from others, either at home or in an area that would not enable us to transmit the disease. And even for those who are physically healthy themselves, you don't want to be transmitting it and giving it to someone who's more vulnerable or immune compromised. According to the Institute of Disease Modeling, without the stay-at-home and the measures introduced by our Governor Brown, we would be dealing with, it's estimated we would be dealing with 25,000 cases right now. So although we are dealing with COVID-19 cases, although we have seen some deaths here in Oregon, it is dramatically lower than what it would have been had we not all engaged in in the physical distancing and the response to the governor's orders to stay home, stay safe, for those of us who are able to. So in that regard, it's good news. Keep up the good work. Now, the flip side of that is, how are people managing that process? And those who are engaged in social media, Facebook, get to see all the memes and all the funny things that are happening, the sad stories as well, but also some of the things that people are either finding humor to get through this time, or also talking about their struggles and their challenge with this time. I've been just speaking with a lot of different folks who are finding different challenges they're grappling with right now. I was really struck in talking to an educator last week who is having to, provide care for her own kids, also develop curricula for her students, and manage all those household things. It's like 3 jobs in one now. And she was already overstretched in terms of her work, and now she's having to deal with all these other things. So that's really adding to the stresses that I think everyone's feeling. And then even those of us who are fortunate to have a home to stay in, have food in the fridge, we're very appreciative to those who are out putting themselves in harm's way to help address COVID-19. But I'm hearing from some folks almost a sense of feeling guilty that they're also feeling depressed and stressed out by it. To that, I would just say, cut yourself some slack. We really need to, ultimately we need to get through this. We need to get through it together. And part of it involves your own self-care. So this brings us into some of the tips and ideas. The Oregon Health Authority, OHA, has some really great information. Yes, they talk about physical care and physical distancing and hand washing and all those things that we've been thinking about in order to protect ourselves from COVID-19. But they've also have got information on self-care and mental health care as well. And that's what's really critically important. Having a daily exercise, whether it's physical or mental or spiritual, in our relationships as well. Sometimes spending a lot more time with our spouses, even our beloved spouses, it can create tension if we haven't developed the mechanisms to develop that new routine and find space for each other and being gentle with each other when we're really stressed. It's something that is part of the reality that everyone's dealing with. And for some folks, I think just cutting yourself some slack and knowing that that's happening, and then making space to really deal with it. Those who follow the wellness model or think about wellness, keep in mind it talks about not just physical, but it talks about social wellness and emotional wellness, spiritual, environmental, occupational, intellectual, and physical well-being. Those are all part of what tie into our personal health. So it's really about developing a mindset to have some gentleness around ourselves and each other, to develop some daily routine and exercise, even if it's still in your sweats, and also realizing that staying at home is an action that you are taking. Again, for those who are playing a necessary role in our physical health, in the healthcare system, in our food system, in our education distance learning system, thank you all for the work you're doing. For those who are not in those fields and doing that work, your job is to stay home if you can. If you've got a home to stay in, stay out of the way and help flatten the curve. We see another great resource is the American Psychological Association also has some really great resources. Now this requires having access to the internet to look this information up. So we will provide some links in the comments of this post, and we'll be pushing them out also on social media, some things we've been doing as well. But even some of the real simple things you can be doing, stay in touch with friends and family. That not only helps their mental health, it helps yours as well. Those of us who have technology, who can have this interaction, it's really helpful, but use it to reach out more. A simple text, a call, finding ways. Our family had a Zoom family gathering the other day, and it was really fun. It also allowed us to connect with those that we often only see at family reunions because they live so far away. So in some ways, if you have access to the technology, it really can break down some of those distance barriers that we typically otherwise see. There have been some great stories about social distancing birthday parties where people sit far apart, or people driving by people's homes and connecting with people that way. The other important thing I think every day is to find something to make you laugh. I know there's council member Herrera, who's a Kaiser council member. He has the funniest posts, and I love checking out the posts he does. He posts inspirational songs or jokes or just funny memes, and it's a nice way to kind of lighten the mood every day when we're kind of dealing with this stuff. And just keep in mind, we're in this together. We will get through this together. There will be low moments, but really leaning into it and staying as positive as we can be, and allowing yourself not to be positive, but also incorporating those tips that allow us to maintain both our physical and our mental health is really critically important. So I'm jumping down to some questions that came in. One was what are some of the good resources? So just to highlight those again, the Oregon Health Authority, OHA has a great resource, as a great source. The American Psychological Association, another great resource. And then if you're engaging in other circles that help to build up your, help you to laugh and build up your sense of self and your positive mental health, those are things to really find that avenue to engage in right now. Again, contacting family and lifting them up. Another question is, how can people stay engaged in politics with social distancing? Great question, because we have a primary coming up on May 19th and here in Oregon, and ballots will drop in late April. So just a couple of weeks away, 2 weeks away, ballots are going to start dropping. Here in Oregon, fortunately, we have a vote by mail system that's been in place for 20 years. And so we already have those tools in place to stay safe and stay engaged in politics. For those who want to follow, there are really important races happening. Obviously, everything from presidential to Congress here in Oregon. We have the state Senate we have Jeff Merkley is running for re-election. At the statewide level, we have the Secretary of State's race where I'm running. You need to make sure, if you want to vote here in Oregon, if you want to vote in a primary with folks who are registered by a specific party, you need to be registered for that party. And so wanted to encourage people to check your registration. You need to do that by April 28th, and you can do that at sos.oregon.gov. You want to verify your registration, that your ballot's going to go where you designate, either at your home or a place that you designate to pick up your ballot. You want to verify if you're not registered with a primary party and you want to be able to vote in some of these races. There'll be any other issues on the ballot that are not tied into a political party, those will still be on your ballot. But if you want to be able to vote for someone who's listed by party, so for example, I'm registered as a Democrat. To vote for me in the primary, you would need to be registered as a Democrat. For folks who don't identify strongly with one major party or another, you can register temporarily for a party for the primary, and then after May 19th, change your registration again. So that's one way that you can engage in a closed primary process. And then our website is jamiefororegon.com. We've got a lot of information, including some tips on dealing with COVID-19 on our website. But we have policy positions. And also we've been doing a lot of things on social media. I've got my personal page, Jamie McLeod-Skinner, that's more of a personal bent and some of the things we're doing at home for Cass and I and our family to get through this time. But on our Jamie McLeod-Skinner for Oregon is our formal campaign page, and that's where we're posting things like this. So we've got different information on those different sites. Another question came out, how are you managing working from home? So that means Cass and I are tag teaming in the office because we've just got one office space. And we're doing different things. We're trying to go for more walks. We're fortunate that we have a bunch of open space nearby that we're walking our dogs. We actually just did a little mini post or mini video of that yesterday while we were out walking the dogs, and that may post that on my personal page to get that information out, just so you can see get a look at Central Oregon for those of you who are stuck indoors. We also, I know Cass has been working on her gardens because she's a big gardener. And so that's in her extra time, that's some of the things that she's been doing. So there's a lot of, again, things we can do just on a personal level, but we're really focused on trying to, we help out, we've got family in the area, both her parents and my mom. So we help out as needed there, but otherwise try to kind of, like I said, stay out of the way. Even the Jefferson County ESD board meeting, it's all we're doing it through online right now, and so we're still able to engage and do our civic duty, but also make sure that we're keeping that physical distance. So with that, I'm going to wrap this up. Thank you all for tuning in. Hopefully the big takeaways here are: one, keep up with the physical distancing. I know people are calling it social distancing. Again, I like to call it physical distancing while staying socially connected. It's working here in Oregon. And so everyone's contributing to the staying home and flattening the curve and not spreading COVID-19 is critically important, not just for your health, not just for the health of your family, but the health of all Oregonians. And we're going to be hit by it. I mean, we've already had some loss of life, but the more that we try to exercise that physical distancing discipline and cleaning up surfaces, and thanks to all the janitors out there who are cleaning up those surfaces for public areas, the more we do that, the more we're going to minimize the impact here in Oregon, and hopefully have this virus run its course, and so we can transition to learning what we could learn from this time, and then doing things better next time. And then the other thing, of course, is take care of yourself. Take care of yourself, your family, your community through physical distancing, but also find ways to stay on top of things for your personal health, your physical and your mental health. Don't underestimate the importance of staying positive, and that's part of staying healthy as well. So thanks for joining us for this Hot Topic Monday. I'm live streaming 3 times a week. We'll go back to some of the traditional Secretary of State issues on Wednesday and Friday. We've got information on our website as to what topics we're covering when. We're also going to be doing some live streams. We started some of these already with Oregon Voices, some roundtables, some town halls on topics with other Oregonians, some other candidates who are running from office, and also local subject matter experts in other areas, and talking with folks from different communities geographically around Oregon, and from different communities, folks focused on different areas that will help us maybe hear some of those voices that are not being heard, because that's a real issue, that challenge that we're facing here in Oregon, making sure voices are heard and people and government is accountable and government is engaged. So thanks everyone, and check out a future live stream. Thank you.